Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the 14th interview that we're doing now. I know 14, we're into double figures. We've got Fraser Franks today. How are you doing, Fraser?
I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
That's all right. No worries. It's good to speak to you. So we were just speaking about this off stream as well. But how's things been sort of through the lockdown and through the COVID situation?
It's I was saying, I can't complain too much. Me and my family are healthy. With work and stuff like that, I've probably been busier now than I ever have been. So I'm doing lots of things online. I feel like I've used my time wisely and I've not wasted too much of it. So it's quite nice for my wife to have me home, and we've got a little baby and stuff. So I feel like I've used my time well, but I am looking forward to for normality coming back. That's for sure.
That's right. So in terms of your career, we'll get started really in terms of when you were at Stevenage. What made you join up with Stevenage in the first place? Obviously, you just left Luton. Luton had just got promoted out of the conference into the Football League. And then, what was the main sort of reasoning behind, leaving them to come to Stevenage?
It was, so I joined Luton in the January when we were in the conference, and then got promoted with them. But I signed a 2.5-year deal, so I got promoted with them. Really enjoyed it. It was playing week in, week out. And then when we got to League Two, I think I only made 20 appearances, something like that, in the first year in League Two. And it was a little bit of a disjointed changing room. There was far too many players. I think we had 35 plus pros. I didn't really get on with the manager, if I'm honest. And, the training wasn't great and things like that for me personally. And then it got to the end of that season. I still had another year left at Luton, but I just thought, I need to go somewhere where I'm going to play week in, week out. Enjoy it a lot more than I was in my last year at Stevenage and at Luton. And luckily, Teddy got in contact with me pretty quickly, and I was able to walk away from Luton and join Stevenage. Yeah.
So then what was it like? Obviously, you mentioned Teddy there. What was it like playing under him as a manager?
Brilliant. For him, he was a big part of me signing. I think when you hear the name Teddy Sheringham, and, I obviously grew up in the 90s, and he was one of my heroes growing up. So when he phoned me out of the blue, I'd never really spoken to him before, and, had his number come up on my phone, and thought it was probably a bit of a wind up at first that Teddy Sheringham was phoning me, but no, he was brilliant and a really good coach, actually, and probably didn't get the respect that he deserved, in my opinion, during his time at Stevenage. I think he needed time to adapt. He obviously made mistakes, but for him to be sacked within, I think it was 8 or 9 months that he got sacked in, was harsh, but that's football.
That's right. And then we've got Tom here, who's a Southend fan. You played in a number of positions. What was your sort of preferred out of the lot? Whether it was right back, centre back, on the left hand side.
It was, definitely centre back. I think it probably worked for me and against me during my career that I played in different positions.
Yeah.
I think for Stevenage, I think I played across the whole back four, centre mid, and then towards the end of my time, they started chucking me up front. So I was a utility man at times. Sometimes it's a good thing because you're playing every week, but sometimes you just want to, be settled in your own position. And as I said, it went for me sometimes, and maybe sometimes held me back a little bit as well.
And you said that you went up and you played up front a few times. There's one game I remember really, really well. You were thrown up front. It was 1-0 down away at Morecambe.
Yeah.
And it was about 87, 88 minutes you come on, and then you scored. And what was that like? Obviously, there was the whole celebration with it. Was it the dinosaur celebration as well? Was that you? I'm sure it was.
That was a few years. That was a year before, I think. I don't know. I think I was a little bit surprised that I scored. So I think I'd cut my ears or did something silly. But it got to a stage where I started going up front in training, little training games, and started scoring a few goals in shooting practices, and then I think I'd played a couple of weeks before. We played against Crawley, and we were down to 10 men, and the gaffer chucked me up front for the last couple of minutes, and he caused havoc a little bit, and we had a few chances, and then he just started doing it a little bit more often, and I found myself out of the team in that Morecambe game, and then he just turned to me on the bench and said, "You're going up front, and just try and be a handful." And probably didn't expect that I'd score the goal that I did, but yeah,
It was a nice finish as well. It was a really well taken goal.
A little bit of a tackle volley, but I'll take it.
No, it was a good goal. We've got another question here. We'll use Rise first. Who is your best friend in football?
I've still got loads from Stevenage. Probably from Stevenage, probably Dale Gorman is who I'm still in contact with most. But I've made some real tight bonds at Stevenage, and we've still got a group chat, which is myself, Tongy, Ronnie Henry, Tom Conlon, Dale Gorman, Tom Pett. They were probably the bunch that I was closest with. Joby McAnuff as well. I'm still quite close with in football. I do think I made a lot of good friends at Stevenage.
And then we've got here from Tom again, the best player that you played with and against, and obviously this can kind of go back to when you played for Newport as well. You had that really great FA Cup run when you knocked out Leicester, and you knocked out Middlesbrough, and then you had Man City the round after that. Yeah. And I remember, I think you were on the bench, and what was that like, sitting on the Newport bench and then looking over and seeing De Bruyne and Sterling on the bench for City? That's just got to be mad.
It was, but it was really frustrating for me because, as you say, we had that cup run and I was captain at Newport at the time. And obviously captained us to, we beat Leicester in the third round and then we beat Middlesbrough. And I'd done my ankle a couple of weeks before the Man City game. And I should never have been involved, but I just did everything I could to try and be part of that squad and ended up coming on as sub. So in the back of my mind, I was gutted that I wasn't really fit. And I wasn't obviously starting and captaining the boys and stuff like that. But, just to share a pitch with, some of them names and a Pep Guardiola team when, I'd spent years of my career in non-league and stuff like that. So it's chalk and cheese. But yeah, you could pick any one of 11 names on that pitch and they'd be up there with the best I played against.
And then obviously that Leicester side, they were a really good side as well. Loads of big Premier League names in there. And you went out and, you just, caused a big upset by knocking them out. And I remember watching that one. I think it was a Friday night game. I remember watching
Sunday afternoon it was, yeah.
Sunday afternoon, that's it. I remember watching it. And I remember just looking and sort of you and, who was it you were playing with at centre-back at the time? But neither of you put a foot wrong. You were both exceptional on that day.
Yeah, it was good. It's one of the games that I now I've stopped playing. I look back on and, it was a big highlight as an individual game. When I come up against Premier League teams before, we had it at Stevenage. We played against Stoke in the Cup. And I conceded after about 20 minutes. And then it was just, we got battered after that 4-0, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I played against Premier League teams, but I'd never managed to beat one. So, obviously to captain him and to have my nephew as mascot and all things like that, family in the crowd, and to beat a Premier League team on BBC, which it was on. It was a massive highlight for me.
That's right. And then you've you said there obviously the Stoke game. That was the only real taste of playing a Premier League side in the Cup before that, wasn't it? And that was, as you mentioned, it was a good occasion to be involved in, no doubt. But it was one of those games. I think was it Bardsley scored from like 25 yards for Stoke on that day? Yeah.
And then I think I extended Peter Crouch's career by about 5 years by him scoring a hat-trick against us. So
I remember that as well.
But I'd always, I got quite far in the FA Cup and things like that before at Luton, and but we'd always draw. We drew some decent Championship teams, but we never really got a decent draw in the Cup. So, it was about time, watching that draw and on the BBC and Man City get pulled out and Leicester and teams like that. So it was a nice change to play against those kind of teams.
That's right. And then in terms of when you left Luton to come to Stevenage, was that a difficult decision at all? I know you said there, you weren't really getting on with some of the players and the management staff maybe, but was it sort of difficult to leave Luton on the back of them getting promoted?
No, I'd obviously had the year after we got promoted, and it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel like home to me. I look back at my time and those first 6 months where, I was playing week in, week out, doing really well. We won the league. were brilliant times. But the season after, it just didn't. It was so up and down, and the team was changed around so much that you could never really get going. And when it came to the end, obviously, I had a year left on my contract at Luton. But when there was interest from Stevenage, and from speaking to Teddy, I was going to be more of a key player. Obviously, Luton and Stevenage were in the same league at the time, so to go and play for a League Two club and have more of a senior role, I jumped at the chance, if I'm honest.
Was it, what sort of an impact was it on sort of staying a bit more local as well? Obviously, you didn't really have to move or, do a lot more travelling. It's only 20 minutes down the road. So what was that like? Was that did that play a part in it as well?
No, not really. I've never really settled in an area. I've come from South London, but I've moved all over the place through football. I moved out when I was about 18, so I've always moved here and there. So that was never really. I was a single lad at the time. It was never really a big deal for me. But I did end up moving because when I was at Luton, I lived in. They put me in Dunstable at first. So me and Andre Gray had a flat together, so we lived together. And then I moved to Hitchin once I signed for Stevenage, which was definitely a nicer area. But it was just coincidence that they happened to be not too far away. I wasn't bothered either way.
Fair enough. Rye said, I was gutted when you beat Middlesbrough as you drew 1-1 and you weren't involved in that one. And then Matty Dolan had scored the 93rd minute against his former team. He's a Plymouth fan, but he's also a Middlesbrough fan as well. So he was gutted, and that was the reason he was gutted.
Yeah, I remember because as I said, I'd done my ankle just before that. And I was actually at home just waiting for the scores to come through, and we were 1-0 down, and I was probably just waiting for the full-time whistle, if I'm honest. And then probably my best mate at Luton at the time, Matty Dolan, came on a sub against his old team and obviously put us in the hat for the next round, and that's when we drew Man City. So, yeah, it wasn't a great day for him, but it was a great day for me.
That's right, yeah. And then we've got... so how did it feel making your debut for Stevenage? Obviously, it wasn't... a favourable result. We ended up losing the game to Notts County, but what was that like as an occasion?
Yeah, it's always nice. Like, first day of the season's always an unknown, and there'd been a lot of change at Stevenage before that. Obviously, I came in and my plan was to play as many games as possible. So for Teddy to put me in on day one and make me a starter was the main reason I went there. But yeah, it was a funny old season that year. But as an occasion, it was a good occasion. I think we did. I think if I remember rightly, we did all right in the game, but we just we had lacked a bit of a cutting edge and then give a sloppy goal away, I think so. But no, it was good. As I said, the main thing I wanted to do was play games, and to play the first one and be in the team was the main thing for me.
And then obviously in your time at Stevenage, you played along the back with Ronnie Henry there. What was Ronnie like? Obviously, Ronnie was there when you were at Luton as well. He was Luton captain at the time. So, what was it like to play with Ron again?
Yeah, brilliant. I think he's one of them players you always know what you're going to get. I got on really well with him at Stevenage and at Luton. Someone I'm still in contact with now. And yeah, he was, Mr. Reliable for Stevenage, Mr. Consistent. And for me as a centre half, it was the perfect right back to play alongside, really.
Then we've got this one here. What was Dan Butler like as a player at Newport?
Brilliant. Probably the best left back I've played with. I think he'll move on from Peterborough and go one higher. I think he'll be a championship left back. But very good player. Very dedicated. Very professional. The fittest and that I've ever played with. And just unfortunately for Stevenage, he actually came to the training ground when he was at Torquay, had a meeting at Stevenage, and we didn't end up taking him. And then he ended up going to Newport. So it's one that Stevenage missed out on a few years ago, and could have been a big player for us. And
then obviously, we were talking about defenders coming up through the ranks when you were there was Ben Wilmot, and you played a few games with Ben. So did you guys know how good Ben was going to be?
Yeah, from day one that I trained with him. I think the main thing you look for in the young lads stepping up and training with the first team is their character.
Yeah,
and he was very humble. Probably didn't realise how good he was. did everything right, the right attitude, everything you'd want in a young player. And then I knew from, I'm not just saying it, but I knew from the first few sessions that I saw him that he would go on to play for our first team and go on to have a good career. Probably didn't think it would come as soon as it did.
Yeah.
He probably, he'll admit himself he wasn't ready to step up into the first team, but that enabled him to move on and get in the shop window, and the club ended up doing really well financially out of it.
That's right, and then he's followed in the footsteps of his dad as well. His dad was the goalkeeper for the club, so
yeah. Remember that.
And then we've got Jordan said, "Who was your best friend at Stevenage?" You've kind of named a few, but is there anyone out of that group, or is it just those 4 or 5 that you mentioned before?
Yeah, probably that bunch. There's probably 6 or 7 lads that I'm really close with. Probably Dale Gorman's probably the one that I speak to the most. Just a great lad, great character. He's probably someone that fans don't get to see what he's like in and around the training ground and the impact he can have. People, same as people like Michael Tong and Joby McAnuff.
Yeah,
people only see them on the pitch, but they don't realise the day-to-day impact that they have around the training ground and the changing room. And some great characters from back then.
And then Rice said Tyreek Bakinson played on loan as well. What do you think of him?
Yeah, another one, very good player. He's still got a lot to learn going forward, but he's very young. He's had 2 really good loan spells now at Newport and Plymouth, and he's another one I think will be, if he stays grounded and his head's right, he'll be a championship player, no doubt.
So what was your favourite moment when you were at Stevenage? Obviously, you scored a few goals in there, the Morecambe goals against Hartlepool as well. What was your sort of favourite moment in terms of your time there, the 3 years that you had at the club?
I think winning Player of the Year my first year was big. I come from Luton and I came unhappy, and it just brought my enjoyment back. Although as a team, we didn't have the best of seasons, but for me, I felt like I found a home more than anything. I went to some like Stevenage where I was wanted and fans made me feel wanted. I probably not, I was at Welling when I was younger, and had fans sort of singing my name and stuff like that. But to come to Stevenage and, for the fans to take to you, and I don't think they realise the impact that, if you've got like, your own individual song or chant in the crowd, it does make a difference. And Stevenage are really good at that. It's one thing, I know you signed a lot of young non-league lads who wouldn't have experienced that. So if they can do that next year and, them lads to have their own song sung by a terrace people don't realise the impact that has. So that's massive. But that was a big moment, winning Player of the Year. And then I think the win against Luton was big. Going away at Luton, I had a bit of a point to prove. To do well, to win 1-0, keep a clean sheet. It was that was a big high for me as well.
That was a great game as well. I remember just all the scenes, and when Stevenage played Luton, whether it was back in the day with Scott Laird scoring or the Kenner's goal, or whatever it is, it's a huge game. And what does that mean to the players? Do the players do they know much about that sort of derby atmosphere?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone was well aware of it. At the time, we were competing in similar positions. We were both in and around the playoff positions.
Yeah.
So that obviously added to it as well. But we always, apart from the obvious one where we got absolutely turned over.
7-1, 8-1, wasn't it in the end? Yeah.
No, 7, wasn't it?
7-8, 7 or 8, yeah.
Before that, we'd always done well against them. I think my first game back there, we drew 0-0 and then beat them 1-0.
Yeah.
Then we beat them at their place again and drew with them at home. And that was the only time I ever lost to them. It just happened to be a big loss. But we always seemed to do really well against them initially. We knew we had some ex-Stevenage players, ex-Luton players who knew what it meant and had points to prove as well. So, everyone was well aware of that derby. Yeah,
and then that was just a great derby, and it's one of the best games. When we play Luton, it's the one that we look forward to. I don't know what we're going to have really in terms of next season, apart from maybe Barnet will be the only one.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Woking obviously as well. Yeah.
But hopefully Revs to get the boys back up.
We've got a message from Dan. Would you ever come back if you were asked to join, maybe as a coach or something like that?
I don't think my pathway is coaching.
Yeah.
But the work I'm doing now, I work a lot with academy football and some first teams, and it's about offering support off the pitch and in the mental side of the game. So I'd definitely do that. I work with a lot of EFL clubs at the minute doing it. Saying that, I've actually got to talk with Luton next week.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah, I was really close with Revs. Stevenage is the longest I was ever at a club in the local area, so I'd always do anything I can to help Stevenage. No doubt about it.
And then you played, what was it, over 100 games? It was about 115, 120 games for Stevenage. So what's it like to be in the 100+ club? Is that an extra something that you kind of feel an extra bit proud of?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I'd had too many clubs before I joined, and it was only out of frustration sometimes that I'd had injuries or I'd found myself at the team, and I was never someone that was happy to be on a bench. So if I weren't playing, it was like, right, let me go and find a club where I am going to play. So I wanted to find a home, and that's what I ended up doing. I wanted to stay at a club for a few years. Ideally, I wanted to win something, and I do feel like we were close to it in my second season, but didn't end up happening. But no, yeah, I'm definitely proud of that.
And your second season, was that the playoff? Were we in the playoffs? Was that the Southend playoff defeat?
No, it was. We missed out on the playoffs in the last couple of games of the season.
That's it. Yeah, of course. There's a few games left of the season, and we were only a few points off.
It's a strange one to look back on because, for me personally, I think we won 10 in a row or something like that towards the back end of the season.
Yeah.
And we played. I think we had 5 games left or 6 games left, and we played Portsmouth at home, and we beat them 3-0.
That's it. Yeah.
Portsmouth were 3rd at the time, and we were 4th, and there was a point in it.
Yeah.
And we ended up, I don't know why, but we ended up changing the team quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 games. I ended up, I don't think I played in the last 3 or 4, and that was frustrating for me. And then we didn't win the last 5 games. I think we ended up missing out in the playoffs by 1 or 2 points. But that season we had some good players and some good characters, and we should have been in that playoffs at least at a minimum.
Yeah, and it's to beat somebody like Portsmouth that convincingly as well.
Yeah,
it's sort of
we beat them 3-0, and as I said, there was a point in it with 5 games to go. They won 5 games and won the league. We lost 5 games, and I think we ended up 9th or something like that. And it's something I look back on, and I think it would have been great to have the lads that we had in the dressing room. It would have been great to achieve promotion and have celebrations and stuff like that with them.
Dan's put. What are your thoughts on Chelsea going into next season? Your views on Timo Werner signing, and finally about Frank Lampard. Obviously, you started off your career with Chelsea through the Chelsea youth team, didn't you? So
yeah, and it's probably, I said what I'm doing now. It's probably the club that I'm working closest with at the minute. So I'm in at Chelsea's academy quite a lot, and I think they're doing a brilliant job. I think an FA Cup final and possible top 4 is more than most people would have expected this season. They're finally making use of the academy and getting players in the first team, which is, they've always had one of the best academies in the country and won the Youth Cup near enough every year, but weren't producing players for the first team. Yeah. And I think now they've started doing that, and there's a lot of great work going on in the academy as well. So I think they're on a great path.
They've got some big names that are coming through there, into the first team as well. Hudson-Odoi and Tamori and Reece James and players like that.
Yeah, and they've all been there since the age of 9 or 10, so it's good to see them coming through.
So, what about when you were at Stevenage? You played alongside. You played under Darren Sarll as well as under Teddy Sheringham. What was the sort of main differences between Darren and sort of Teddy as managers?
Very different. They all both had their own different styles. I think the main thing with Teddy, for me, he's a very good coach. I learned a lot from him. I think, as I said before, I don't think he was shown enough respect, maybe by possibly by Stevenage fans and by some people in and around it. I think, this is one of the best players of the generation that we had. And although we weren't doing great, I think people could have been a little bit more patient with him, maybe. It was going from Graham Wesley style and changing everything to go to a new style of football. So it was always going to take time. And then when you look back at what's happened this season, you look back and think, you know what, maybe we were a bit too harsh on him, and the team have ended up getting relegated when we would have stayed up safely with Teddy, no doubt about it. But I think one of his problems was with now you can only sign players in the designated windows. At the time, you could sign, you could bring in 5 new loan players every month, and that's what we did. And we had far too many players come through the door, far too many players leave, a lot of players on loan. I don't think Teddy knew the standard as well as he knew the higher leagues, maybe. He probably didn't know as many League Two players as he would have liked to. And then Sarli's a complete opposite. He knows every single player inside out in the lower leagues. Very detailed, very strict, but also has the other side to him. But for me, a lot of people don't know, but he was my youth team manager on my second year scholarship at Brentford. So
that's right.
I've known him for 12 years now, and session wise and going out and training and stuff like that, he's the best I've worked with by a long way. I think most players will say that. I think his problem at Stevenage was it's his club. And I think because he came through as an academy coach, the club and the hierarchy always had a little bit of a hold on him. He probably felt under pressure more than most, because he's a Stevenage boy. Defeat affected him more than it would anyone else. And I just feel he was so desperate to do well for Stevenage that it maybe went against him at times, and he was so emotionally involved. And I know he'd go home and he'd be thinking about it all night. And he was a young manager in his first job, so it was a lot to take on for if you're managing your hometown club in your first job, it's a lot to take on. And I know he's gone to Yeovil now and he's doing well. And I spoke to him briefly a few months back, and I know he feels like he's calmed down a little bit more. Probably doesn't let it affect him as much when he goes home at night. And his experience, he's still a very young manager. And
that's right. And I spoke to Charlie Lee as well. Charlie was one of the first. I think it was the second interview that I did on this channel that I'm doing now. And he was saying quite a lot about Darren and Yeovil and stuff. And obviously they've just missed out. They lost to Barnet the other day. Was it the weekend? So I'm sure with a bit more time and another full season, getting back up there and challenging for the playoffs or the title or whatever again. So
I said he's a young manager, but he's got massive experience. He's my youth team manager at 25 at Brentford, and there's not many youth team managers at that age. So he's got abundance of experience as well as still being young. So for me, as I said, he was probably too emotionally involved with Stevenage, and it probably helps him that he's moved away from the area. He's at a club where he can start fresh and redevelop himself as a manager.
That's right. Dan has put two parts to this question. Who is the best player in the world in your opinion at the moment? And then back to Stevenage. You played with Ben Kennedy. What do you think sort of went wrong with Ben during his time at Stevenage?
Best player in the world, you've got to go the old Messi Ronaldo route, I think, at the minute. And as a defender, I love obviously Virgil van Dijk and people like that. Kenners is a tricky one for me because I've got a lot of time for him. One thing I think people underestimate is that these lads, there was an influx of Irish lads at Stevenage, young lads.
That's right. It was Kenners, Dale, Mark McKee. There's a few others as well.
There's a lot more in the youth team as well. I think there's probably close to 10 of them. And for them to come over as 15, 16-year-old lads, it's tough. They're coming away from friends, family, chucked from a different country and plonked in the middle of Stevenage and living with a different family and host parents and stuff like that.
That's right, yeah. Liam's another one that comes to my mind there. Liam Smythe as well.
Yeah, there was a lot. And I think that almost goes unnoticed at times. I think maybe they could have been looked after a little bit more. off the pitch. But obviously, at a club like Stevenage, there's only so much. Sarley was their youth team, and there's only so many hours he can work. At a big club, you've got designated people. I've seen what it's like at these top clubs.
Yeah.
You've got designated player care people that will, focus all their energy on what goes on in these lads' lives off the pitch and making sure they're eating right at home, making sure they're happy, because 9 out of 10 of them lads were homesick and played a big part. Maybe we could have, as a club, let them go home every other week and spend time with family and things like that. That might have helped.
I think the club, they try and do that with Kenners, though. Didn't they send him back for a few weeks at different points sometimes? Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time it was because he was so unhappy and missing home that much that it was an instinct thing. It should have been a natural thing. Let the lad go home for a little bit.
Yeah. Let
him see his mum, let him see his dad, his family. So you had that side of it. But with Kenners, but I say that Dale Gorman was a complete opposite. He loved it here. He was, he wasn't homesick at all for me, and came in, but different personalities miss different things, and I feel Kenners was homesick quite a lot. But with him, he burst on the scene, playing a lot of games at a young age, and I feel like the club maybe could have let him go a lot earlier. I feel like they could have. I know there were clubs interested. I know there were teams bidding for him and decent amounts of money. I feel they could have let him go.
It's a shame now that he's gone on a free. Like if he was let go, 3 or 4 seasons ago, the club would have got some money out of it.
I feel like they should have let him go maybe 3 years ago, I'd say. They could have got easily up to £500,000 for him. I think it would have been better for his career, because I think he'd begun to stagnate at Stevenage. He'd probably been at the club for too long, maybe got a little bit comfortable himself. And it's a shame, because Stevenage, you've got to do right by the club and get as much money as they can for him, but it also probably hindered his move. I remember in League Two they were slapping £1 million price tag on him, and it wasn't realistic. I feel like he could have stepped up to a League One team for half that money, maybe, and maybe kicked on. But he's still a young lad, and I'm hopeful that he'll find the next, the right club next, and he's still got time to do that.
That's right. And then he went out on loan. He went to Newport on loan, didn't he, as well? So I don't know whether Newport would have any interest in maybe signing him on a permanent, but he
came and did right for Stevenage, and again, it was, I think for him at that time, he just wanted a new challenge, and as I said, he'd probably gone a little bit stale at Stevenage, and he'd been there for too long. But he was a big part in getting Newport to the playoffs. He happened to suffer an injury just before the actual playoffs took place, so he couldn't take part in them. But yeah, he hopefully gets his head right, and the next move for him is a big one. So hopefully, as I said, he can find a home and find somewhere to kickstart his career again.
That's right. And then there's some good players from Stevenage that are now up in the upper ends of just got promoted to the Championship as well. Matt Godden was the prime example of that. From he got promoted with Coventry. And him and Danny Newton, when those two were on fire, they were just great strikers, and they had a really good partnership, didn't they?
Yeah, I think Matty probably this season before Newts got there was his best one.
Yeah,
like his first season when he signed from Ebbsfleet, and he just signed with. It's one thing I'm glad Stevenage have gone back to this season by the looks of their recruitment is get these young and hungry players from non-league. Go back to what Stevenage are good at. If you look at if you, from the outside, before I came to Stevenage, if someone said to me, what are Stevenage? They are a group of young, hungry, non-league players, desperate for a chance in the Football League. They don't want to they're not interested in massive wages, that kind of thing. They want an opportunity. They want a place to play football, and they'll give you everything. And that's what Stevenage need to go back to. I look at some of the recruitment they had last year, and, I watched a couple of the games, and it was just, they were signing body after body, and it was the wrong kind of player. They need to do what they've done this season and just strip it back, go back to the Stevenage way of getting young, hungry players with a point to prove who are desperate to wear that Stevenage shirt. And people like Goddard and Matty Newton are prime examples of that. That's what you need. And, for me, when you're at a club like Stevenage, you're better to have a small squad of, 16 players, a couple of young lads, rather than, I looked at Stevenage's squad list on the back of a programme, and there was about 35 players there last year.
Yeah, that's right. I think the biggest squad number was like 47, 48 or something. Like it was,
and it's
it
just
was
silly.
hard.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened to me at Luton, and you can't create any kind of team spirit because there's too many. There's too many unhappy players that aren't playing around the building, and it just becomes a negative place to be. So, looking by the recruitment, I know Leon's probably still doing it, and
Leon's still there. Yeah.
and Revs, and it looks like they've realised they've made a mistake in the last couple of years with the players they're bringing in, and they've gone back to the Stevenage way, which hopefully pays good in the end.
That's right, and then they've just signed another goalie today, so they're going into non-league again. He was, he come from Norwich, but I think he played a few games for Braintree, so he knows some of the, like Liam and Jack and stuff from being there at Braintree.
This is exactly the kind of player that you need. You need players that are on the up, not on the down.
Yeah, and a couple of players from Dover and other teams like that. From Innie Effiong was the one from Dover that we signed. And
Innie actually came on trial at Stevenage probably 2 years ago, and he did all right in training. Actually, I remember. I think we were close to signing him, but I don't know what happened with it. Club ended up changing their mind, so they've obviously kept tabs on him. And I think he was playing for Biggleswade at the time, so he wasn't proven at conference level. But now he's had a couple of good years in the conference, and obviously the club's kept tabs on him and obviously signed him this time around.
That's right, and then they've got Femi that's come in and Ross Marshall and a couple of the. I think there's one other as well, midfielder. I can't remember the midfielder's name at the moment, but as you're saying, they're going down that kind of route, and hopefully those players will come in and do well. And there's some players there that have signed on for another season or two as well. The likes of Luther, the likes of Scotty Cuthbert. He's going to be staying on for a few years. So obviously, was Scotty around when you were at Luton? Did you know much about Scott?
We crossed paths. I was there for part of pre-season when he came.
Yeah.
And then I've done my coaching badges with him as well. So we were both on the same UEFA B license course a couple of years back. So yeah, I know him quite well. But yeah, you need, as I say, you're signing these young, hungry players. He's perfect for them. You still need 3 or 4 in key positions. A experienced centre half, experienced midfielder, experienced striker, possibly, just to have that influence in the changing room, to drive standards in training, all these little things that sometimes you don't get to see as a fan, but are massive. As I said, one of our biggest downfalls at Stevenage was in that second season we let go Steve Schumacher, Charlie Lee, Joby McAnuff, Jamie Jones, all these big characters, and we tried to replace them with young lads, but you still need those big characters in the changing room, and that will be a big regret that probably Sarli looks back and thinks I should have kept a few of those lads in and around the changing room.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on the current situation with Stevenage at the moment and Macclesfield? And it does look like the club have been relegated, although they're still not completely confirmed yet. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of everything to do with that, and obviously Revs as well as a manager?
I think as harsh as it does sound, I think you cannot win 3 games in a season and expect to stay up in any division. Teams in that league, you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Teams have won more in a week than Stevenage did in a whole season last year. So I think they've got to just accept it. They've not been, for me, they've not been victimised because only 1 team out of that league's gone down. Usually it's 2, but for me it probably should be more than 2 anyway. Because I feel like 3 should come up from the conference and 3 should go down from League 2. So you've got to have a bad season to finish bottom of that league. And Stevenage have got to accept that they have had a horrendous season results-wise on the pitch. And I just think the sooner you can accept it and think, right, this is where we are. We're a conference club now. Let's rebuild and let's bounce back. And I think that's the best way to go about it, rather than maybe feeling a little bit hard done by with Macclesfield and stuff like that. I just think you can't expect to stay up after winning 3 games in a season.
Exactly. Like, what other team in any division, even lower down, would have had 3 wins and 4 managers? No one.
I think if I look at League 2, usually I think I think you can have like 10 wins and still get relegated
Yeah.
or close to that. I think to have 3 wins, as I said, if you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, if you're in form, you're winning 3 games in a week, and you know you can't expect anything with them results. So, but I said hopefully the club have learned from their mistakes. They look like they have because they've got a young, hungry manager and a young, hungry squad that they're assembling. So, I'm really confident that it's a tough league to get out of. Obviously, I've been in it myself and managed to get out of it. So I know that Stevenage can do it if they get it right, and they just need to stick with Revs, even if it becomes frustrating and it's you get off to a slow start. Stick with him, give him a few years, and let the club get back to what they're good at. Every club needs an identity, and Stevenage need to go back to young, hungry players, determined. Don't try and be anything that they're not, and I believe that they'll do that.
I think Revs and Lenny are basically. I think they've kind of got that under control anyway. I think the pair of them, are kind of. That's what they're doing. That they're going down to prepare for the conference and to build. I know Phil obviously is being the chairman has kind of got to fight the club's case a bit.
Yeah.
But I think even he's probably in the back of his mind he's probably like thinking, well. Because he wouldn't have said to Lenny and to Revs to go out and to get these kind of players ready for the conference otherwise.
No, I think the signings that they've made are probably preparing for the conference if I'm right. But as I say, I say accept it because it's been a bad season. If there's a chance that Macclesfield can be dock points and you can go up, then of course, if I'm owning a football club, then I'm going to jump at the chance of that. But I just think as that's out of Revs and people like that. So leave that to Phil. As a team, I'd say, we're a conference team now. If we end up being in League 2, it's a bonus, but get your head around it. We're a conference team. We will be playing conference clubs and having to go to these tough places to go, but let's get our head around it. As I said, let Phil deal with all that stuff, playing staff and coaching staff. Just get your head around it that you're a conference club now.
That's right. Message from Billy. What was your favourite game at Stevenage?
I've mentioned that Luton one, so that probably is it. I'm trying to think of some more. I think we had a good last minute win at Crawley, which is when the dynasty came out. I think
that's it. That was good. Yeah.
But Fratton Park was a brilliant one actually. We won 2-1 away at Fratton Park.
I remember. I was there. I went to both games. I think we won 2-1. Didn't we draw 1-1 the year before or something as well?
Yeah, we drew 1-1 with a last minute Brett Williams header, I think it was.
That's it. Yeah.
And then the year after we done the double over Portsmouth, so we beat them 2-1 at home and then 2-1 away and 3-0 at home.
Yeah.
That for me they're a massive, massive club, and we were almost deemed as little old Stevenage going away to Fratton Park, but we turned them over, and I think that's definitely in the in one of the top games.
That's right. It was. I remember going to that game because my uncle lives in Portsmouth as well. So I was with one of my exes at the time. We went down and we stayed there for a couple of days, and it was a really nice away kind of away trip. Yeah.
Yeah, I had all my family in the crowd that day, so I remember that one.
Then it Rise did that 3-3 at Exeter as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it for the neutral. As I say, that'd be a good game. Not so much for I think I was playing right back that day, but that was a good one. I remember it was a Sky game that you don't get many League 2 games on Sky anymore.
Very rarely, yeah.
Good one for the Sky cameras to pick up.
We had one this season just gone. Obviously, it was the Salford game.
Yeah.
But then that was just the only time that we've been on Sky in years, apart from like the cup or whatever. I don't know whether to ask Steve's question. I'll leave that up to you if you can see it.
I'm looking.
Just in the chat along the side there. It's on about Curtis Guthrie.
Is it at the top?
It's along the side. It's a chat along the side.
Guthrie had to touch you at the Lamex. Oh yeah, with the red card. Yeah, he did. He did, but it wasn't a red card. I had a massive gash in my knee after it, but it wasn't a red card. We both tackled each other as hard, It was a 50-50. We both, I think I caught him as well, so he probably would have had a cut or something. But I was injured, and I remember it because it annoyed me at the time because I ran out of the warm up as a Newport player, and the Stevenage fans give me a big like clap and a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
reception. And I was like, oh, it's a nice touch. Like, it's nice to go back to a club and get that. And then I went down for a foul, and I didn't, try and get him sent off or anything. And the crowd just went, completely turned on me. But he's Curtis is someone, I was at Welling with him when I was 20, 21. I've known him for absolute years, and I think I tweeted after the game or said I think Dino maybe said it in his interview. Like, I came off and I said, I said to the ref, it wasn't a red card. I just, I've got a cut on my leg and I need treatment. So it was nothing like that. But yeah, he did, to answer the question, he did touch me. But yeah, it was probably a yellow card.
Fair enough. What's International Week? That's why it was on Sky. Yeah, the game against Exeter. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Steve, I felt for you on that day. Yeah, it was a bit of a sore moment. Yeah.
No, I did. I laughed it off because it's pantomime when you're playing against your former club. I think, as I said, the main thing for me. I ran out and I got a great reception, from the East Terrace and that kind of thing. As I said, when you get into a game, I wanted to win. Stevenage wanted to win, and that's what happens when you play against teams.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So we've kind of touched on Alex Ravel as well. We said about the 100 plus appearances. So what was it like? When you left the club to go to Newport, did you leave Stevenage with any sort of regrets, or were you kind of just ready to move on at that point?
Yeah, it ended not how I wanted it to, really. So I'd had two seasons at Stevenage.
Yeah.
And then the club took my option year up, and in that summer, I can talk about it now. I'm not at the club, but Lincoln bid for me. So it's when I knew the Cowleys from my time in non-league.
Yeah.
Lincoln bid for me, and I'd not played the last 4 or 5 games of that season when we missed out on the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't happy about it because I felt I was doing all right. I found myself on the bench. So when Lincoln bid for me, I wanted to go, if I'm honest. Nothing against Stevenage, but I felt like, I knew the Cowley brothers well, just through my time in non-league. And I felt like Lincoln were going to go up. Again, I wanted like a change of scenery, maybe.
Yeah.
But the club turned it down, and I ended up staying. So I wasn't desperate to go. I didn't say I want to leave. I just said, that a bid came in, and that was it. So we moved on, and then in January, I'd been playing up until January, and then Motherwell had come in for me.
Okay. Yeah.
In the Scottish Prem, and again, it's something for me as a League Two player. You don't often get to test yourself at the top tier in any country, really. So Motherwell came in for me. I had 6 months left of my contract, but they wouldn't pay a fee. So
okay, yeah.
So I had 6 months left, and it was a case of me saying, look, can I go to Motherwell? I feel like, I was 27 at that point. I feel like this is my chance to go and, test myself, play in the top flight, play against teams like Celtic and Rangers, have a completely different, I've been living around Hertfordshire for the last 3 years. I want to go up to Scotland and have something different. And again, it didn't work out. And it then happened that Motherwell almost said, we'll take you. We'll have to wait 6 months and take you at the end of the season when you're on a free transfer. But it got to the end of the season, and they'd actually taken a lad on loan instead of me, Tom Aldred.
Okay.
He'd gone on loan, so I was their first choice. I couldn't go, so they took him on loan from Blackpool, I think he was at the time, something like that. And he'd gone and he'd done really well, and they ended up signing him permanently. So there wasn't room for me. So that move ended up not happening. And then on top of that, Dino came in with about 6 or 7 games to go. And I wasn't in the team, actually. I was on the bench at this point. But one of the first things he did was, he said, I want you to stay, and he offered me a new contract. And I just knew, even before he came in, I just knew a few things were going on at Stevenage, and I knew a lot of players were going to be leaving, and
Hmm.
I just thought, yeah, this is the time for me to go somewhere new. And Newport had spoken to me before the end of the season, probably 5 or 6 games before the end of the season.
Yeah,
And yeah, just said, look, we want you to come down. You'll be our main centre back. Financially, it was a better deal for me. It was a longer contract, them kind of things, and yeah, it just felt like the right opportunity for me to take.
that's fair enough. And obviously, sometimes you just need to move on and just, you wouldn't have had those memories against Leicester and Man City if you hadn't have done that. So,
Exactly, yeah.
so in terms of, let's have a look what we're up to here now. Yeah, when you left to go to Newport, you left because of the health issues, the issues that you're having with your heart and stuff as well. So how long have you known about that? Is that something you've always known about, or?
No, I got scanned when I was 16 and had an irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I was always told it would never affect my football.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, long story short, I just had a little bit of an episode and came down funny after a game,
Yeah.
and then got taken to hospital and given, I was in hospital for a good while, sent to loads of different specialists, and then the results came back that, I had an issue with my heart, and any sort of excessive exercise and strain on it was going to cause me, potentially cause me a problem. And I was just told the risks were too high to continue playing at the level I was playing at. There's a possibility that I'll have to have surgery in the next couple of years, which is
Hmm.
quite a big operation. They have to break my ribs, open my chest up, and
Ooh,
go in
wow.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's quite a big operation, but I've not had to have it yet, and luckily I can just lead a pretty normal, healthy lifestyle now and just carry on as normal.
And then obviously, in terms of that, did you know much about the whole Mitchell Cole situation? Obviously, with him passing away and the whole heart issues that he had. Obviously, another
Yeah,
player that was linked in well with Stevenage.
I didn't know much about it, but as I said before, I'm doing quite a bit of work at Chelsea, and Joe Cole
Yeah.
is coaching there at the minute, and I've
Right.
been speaking to Joe quite a bit. And he's Mitchell's. Just so happens they've got the same surname, but he's Mitchell's brother-in-law.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's mainly through him that I've, actually gone into detail and spoken about what happened to him, and yeah, but it just so happens that obviously he was another Stevenage player, but Mark O'Brien crazily has just had the same, similar thing, and has also had to retire. And I know he's someone that was really close to joining Stevenage last year.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, under Dino, he was close to joining him.
All right. And then yeah, like Muamba, and it's happened another couple of times as well.
Yeah,
Even you go back to, was it Vivian Foe and stuff as well?
yeah. My old manager at Brentford was Andy Scott, and he collapsed on a pitch and had to retire. So one thing I'm fortunate about is it didn't happen to me, on a pitch and at that kind of level. So yeah, I'm in some ways unfortunate. It happened at home, and I was in hospital and things like that.
So let's have a look. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the FA Cup final, and the FA Cup run, with Chelsea and Arsenal? Obviously, you said you're doing a lot of work with Chelsea, so what sort of how do you feel about that? The FA Cup final, when the games sort of taking place behind closed doors, all the big finals and the big games.
Yeah. It hasn't been the same, if I'm honest, watching it. I probably haven't found myself as engaged as I usually am.
Yeah.
And it probably just shows the impact of fans to players as much as anything, that just how important it is to have fans. And I think you see it at lower league clubs, definitely the importance of fans with the finances and things like that. But it's been nice to have football on in the background and things like that, and to I'll be watching the games shortly when they're probably kicking off now with the championship games and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's not the same having it. But scenes like when Wickham got promoted,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself really drawn into that game and cheering them on. I've got a few friends that play for them, and for that game, it didn't feel like they weren't fans there, just because it was so like emotional, the celebrations and that kind of thing. And I think it'll be the same if Chelsea do end up winning the FA Cup. they've got loads of young lads in there who are desperate to prove points and win trophies, and a manager that's the same. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Should be a good game, and I'm, as well as supporting Stevenage, I'm a big Arsenal fan as well. So I just kind of hope that Arsenal can, Arteta can get one over on Lampard. But that's for another day, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously you mentioned about Brentford there. Today's their last game at Griffin Park as well, isn't it? So
yeah.
Did you get to play there?
I did, not as a first team player, unfortunately. Again, it's Brentford's another club that I'm working quite closely with at the minute, so I'm desperate for them to go up. Someone told me I hold a record for the most unused sub without making an appearance, if you can get your head around that.
Okay.
So I think I was probably on the bench. I was probably on the bench about 30 times for the club.
Yeah.
And didn't get a minute on the pitch in a first team game. So I probably wore that touchline out many times, but didn't get on. But the club's just, if you'd have told me when I was a youth team player that Brentford are one game away from being in the Premier League, I'd have laughed at you. They were a mid-table league, similar to what Stevenage were, a mid-table League Two club.
Yeah.
But the turnaround's just been unbelievable, and it's nice to watch because it's a great environment and they've got some real good people working there.
Dan's put a message. Any youngsters that you would recommend that would be sent out to Stevenage, maybe from like Chelsea or whatever? Anyone that you're working with?
Not off the top of my head. I'm doing. I work in scouting as well, so I'm watching a lot of games and watching a lot of 23s games and things like that. So there's plenty out there. And as I said, Stevenage need to go back to being, what they were. And if they've got that identity and clubs are happy sending their players there, they'll be able to get players from, the Tottenhams and teams like that. And probably more so the Watfords and teams like that. But yeah, it'll be a great club for young players to go on loan to, definitely, especially being in the conference. I think the location helps. You're surrounded by London clubs, and hopefully the club can use that to their advantage. And yeah, if I can help in any way by, putting people together, then I'll definitely do it. But no one off the top of my head, but I'm sure they've got their own targets in mind.
And then you see, you said there about being in the conference and stuff. But if you go down and you look at the facilities, it's a football league stadium, football league training ground. Everything about it really is football league, even though the club have slipped out. It's
massive, and it is a big drawing point for new signings. I'd say you get a lot of players. Traditionally you go to a club, walk around the stadium, walk around the training ground, and meet people before you actually sign. So
that's
to
right.
have that available. Like, I remember the first day I pulled up at Stevenage, and I didn't know what to expect. I'd not done any real research on the club or anything like that. And I pulled up to the training ground, and there was like an electric gate, and I was like, "This is a bit fancy for a League Two club."
Yeah.
Pulled in, and you've got like unbelievable pitches, brilliant facility. It's a perfect place for to build a team, and there's not many training grounds like that in top end of the top end of League One and some Championship teams. So let alone a League Two club. So that's where Phil's done really well. He's invested money into something that's important. You spend 5 days a week at the training ground, and if you can make it as good as you can and the best environment you can for your players, then it's always going to help. That's right. And this is the last one now. So last but not least, you captained the England C team for 4 times, played 5 times for them, and you scored against the Czech Republic as well. So, what's it like wearing the 3 Lions and putting on the shirt, for England? Yeah, really, really good. It's a bit surreal because I don't know if you know, with the FA, they treat everything behind the scenes. They treat every single England team as if they're the senior team. The women get treated the same, the England C team. So you're going away, you're in 5-star hotels, you get the best food, you get you're wearing the England kit, you get looked after, so you get chauffeur driven from your house. It's an amazing experience. And again, it's something that, if you are a non-league team next year, you know, a lot of the players, if they're doing well, will be in the England C team, and it's an unbelievable experience for me. I've been to places that I never would have gone to. Like my debut was away against Bermuda in the Caribbean,
right.
and
Yeah,
for me,
6-1, wasn't it? 5-6-1. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and for me, like incredible. Like some of the players in that team, you know, you had Andre Gray, Sam Clucas, Andy Yeardham at Reading, Anthony Sarcevic at Bolton, James Norwood. It's like a conveyor belt of, I think, near enough every player got a move afterwards. So it's a great experience if nothing else. Like you go to places and experience things you never would in, you know, playing in League Two. Very rarely are you going to end up being an England international, but it's the next best thing for me. And if you can do it as a non-league player, it's, you know, the biggest honour.
Right. Just Dan asked one or two about Chelsea. Just to round things out. So your thoughts on Billy Gilmore? Do you think that he's the real deal? And also, he's on about, can you please donate a signed shirt for a fundraiser for his daughter as well, if that's possible? Because his daughter's doing a great Onman Street, where she's been treated for cystic fibrosis. She's 2.5 years old apparently. So that'd be nice if you were able to do something like that for Dan as well. Yeah.
100%. I've got 2 long sleeve shirts in the next room, so I can definitely give him a Stevenage shirt from there, no problem. If I can get his details afterwards, or if you can send them across to me.
Yeah.
And then Billy Gilmore, probably the most grounded and one of the best characters that I've met at such a young age. He will be the real deal. He already almost is. But I said with Ben Wilmot, one of the main things about these young lads, you can have all the talent in the world, but I've seen so many with the wrong character and the wrong personality. They go down the wrong paths. They're not hungry enough. He will never have that problem. He comes from a real good family. His dad's probably the most important opinion that he listens to. Very grounded kid, very good lad, and a top player. He'll, no doubt about that. I could bet any amount of money that he'll be the real deal.
And then obviously, you know, you mentioned about Billy Gilmore there with his influences sort of being from his dad and stuff. Who are your sort of main influences in football and out of football as well, just to round things out? That's the final one.
Out of it, my mum, definitely. I didn't grow up with a dad or anything like that. I didn't have a relationship with him. My mum took me, she didn't drive, but she took me to every training session. As I said, I was at Chelsea as a kid, so we were training 2-3 evenings a week, then a Saturday, then a Sunday. So, you know, 4 or 5 days a week. Lived quite far away, so it was trains, buses. She took me everywhere. So she was 100% my biggest inspiration, in and out of football.
And then that including, like, you know, early days of playing at Brentford and at Chelsea, and, you know, would she come and watch the games and stuff as well?
Throughout my whole career, she was coming to games at Newport. She come to every Stevenage home game, every Luton one, Wimbledon. She was there week in, week out. So hopefully, you know, it's important to have good support systems. A lot of lads aren't fortunate to have a parent like that. So, you know, I did, and I'm, you know, massively fortunate and grateful for it.
All right. And then, you just said about, you know, your scouting. You do a bit of scouting. What else do you do in terms of, you know, with Chelsea and all of that? Is it, you know, what kind of stuff do you go into the clubs and talk about? So,
the scouting's separate. But with we've got B5 Consultancy, which is myself and he's actually a lawyer, a sports lawyer. So he works with like top Premier League players as the lawyer, but together we go in and we assist the player care team. So it's mainly dealing with all issues off the pitch so that they can, you know, be the best that they can on it. So that's why when I mentioned about the Irish lads, I'm massively passionate about what players do off the pitch. Are they happy? Are they doing right things? Or, you know, this kind of thing. Mentally, you know, there were spells in my career where I struggled with confidence and, you know, mentally struggled and things like that. And there are different kinds of issues. I had family issues, home life, financial, like.
And that's a big thing as well, like the mental health side of it. If you look at, I don't want to go too deep into anything else too sad or whatever again, obviously. But Michael Felicitas as well was another one at Stevenage who, came out of football and went into sort of reality TV, and then obviously everyone knows what happened with him. So
yeah, but he's another one fella. I knew him from like his time in non-league at Welling, and obviously there's a lot of those cases that go on, and there's a lot of hidden depression in football. I think people don't realise the impact of social media, which I'm quite happy. I saw an article from Joel Byram, who was obviously brave enough to bring it up.
It was, what was it, last year, 2 years back? You wrote that,
it is a point that I remember coming off games, especially when I was at Luton, and you're getting abused by fans if you've had a bad game. It's the last thing you need. And Stevenage, I think you had a few fans that were doing it last season.
Yeah.
And if you're in if you're a player that's in bad form and the team's in bad form, the last thing you want to do is come off the pitch and look at your phone and you're getting abused and people telling you how bad you are. You know it. That's why I was, Drakkers at Stevenage was brilliant with what was the hashtag that he did? And
the Stevenage for League Football. Yeah.
And it was something I really wanted to get behind, because fans need to understand that footballers, I see it with, you're an Arsenal fan. I typed in David Luiz's name after his first game when he'd had a couple of howlers, and the abuse that he gets, and people people treat footballers as if they're characters on TV when, these Stevenage lads would get the change
as well, like when he had that incident at Crystal Palace and all that,
Stevenage players haven't got these thousands and thousands of followers, so they'll get off a pitch and the first thing they'll do is look at their phone, and it's just draining if you're getting abuse off fans as well as not playing and you're not happy with yourself. That's why I really liked the movement, and it was like it really galvanised Stevenage fans, and they tried to be positive. And I just think next year, if you can get that to your fan base,
we need to keep that, start that off from day one of pre-season and just go all the way through.
Yeah, if you're signing young lads from non-league, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have howlers here and there. Just stick behind them, and you don't need. If you think they're terrible, go and tell your mate in the pub. You don't need to at them on Twitter or because one of the things as well was people were like, I'll just take myself off Twitter, but people don't realise that if I played a game for Luton or Stevenage, my mum straight away would type my name in on Twitter search bar, and if she types in Fraser Franks and she sees Fraser Franks is rubbish or Fraser Franks is this, that, it has an effect on your family, not just the player.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just think, especially for Stevenage, you've got these young lads coming in, they wouldn't have experienced probably as much exposure, that kind of thing. Just let them, be positive and have that positive influence. As I said, fans that sing your name on the terraces and that kind of thing, you don't realise that can make your game go up 5%, 10%. And if you can start the season with that mindset, Stevenage will be on the up, and I'll be cheering them on.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that, Fraser. So thanks a lot for your time, mate, and I'll leave you to go and enjoy the Liverpool-Chelsea game, which is off, what's that, 5 minutes time that starts, so I'll leave you to get in, go and enjoy that.
Well, thank you, mate, really appreciate it.
Cheers, Fraser, thanks a lot, mate.
Yeah, bye.
See you later, man. Bye-bye.